In the previous video, we see Tao opening the chest only to be nearly sliced in half by an energy blade. At the last moment, Lloyd saves her, and the blade tears through the dungeon floor. From beneath the chest, a Lich emerges, rising menacingly. The Lich stands tall before Tao and Lloyd. After that, Lloyd isn't familiar with the monster, so he turns to Tao for answers. Tao assures him there's nothing to worry about and tries to convince him to leave the cave. However, Lloyd is determined to stay and watch her defeat the monster. Realizing she can't persuade him, Tao suddenly uses her technique to blast Lloyd out of the cave. She hopes the blast will propel him safely to the entrance, silently praying he doesn't break too many bones on the way. As Lloyd is flung through the air, the Lich begins its attack. Tao manages to dodge its strikes, but she's unsettled by its presence. Why would a high-level monster like the Lich be dwelling in such a low-level cave? She quickly deduces that the Lich will be incredibly difficult to handle, so much so that even an A-rank adventurer would struggle against it. Deciding her best course of action is to buy as much time as possible. She focuses on keeping the Lich occupied so Lloyd can safely reach the dungeon entrance. Meanwhile, Lloyd is hurtling through the air, propelled by the energy of Tao's blast. Though he's supposed to leave the dungeon, Lloyd refuses to abandon Tao. He uses his barrier spell to slow his momentum and eventually comes to a stop, landing unceremoniously on the dungeon floor. Unfortunately, his landing disrupts two goblins, who scatter in confusion. Puzzled by Tao's decision to send him away, Lloyd consults his grimoire for guidance. At first, there's no response, and Lloyd suspects he's out of range of their magical link. But suddenly, the grimoire's voice cuts through, small and urgent, pleading for Lloyd to return immediately. It begs for his help, leaving Lloyd torn. He doesn't want to abandon Tao, but he doesn't fully understand the situation either. Back in the cave, Tao is barely managing to hold her own against the Lich. She tries to retreat slowly, hoping to avoid further provoking the monster. However, the Lich notices her use of Kai techniques. It mocks her, claiming that it consumed a previous Kai user and now knows all their secrets. The Lich sneers that Kai techniques are nothing more than an inferior form of sorcery. It reveals that by consuming adventurers, it gains their skills and knowledge. However, it declares Tao unworthy of being consumed, as her abilities are beneath its notice. Instead, it becomes interested in Lloyd, whose ability to react quickly to its attacks intrigues it. Tao reflects on Lloyd's unique perspective. Unlike most people, he recognizes the value and potential of Kai techniques. Motivated by his belief in her, she resolves to fight with everything she has. Using her breathing techniques, she launches a powerful attack against the Lich, but the monster easily creates a barrier, nullifying her efforts. Undeterred, Tao pushes herself to her limits, sacrificing all her energy to punch a hole through the barrier and unleash a point-blank Kai blast. She collapses to her knees, completely drained, convinced she has defeated the Lich. Her relief is short-lived. The Lich levitates above her, unscathed. It mocks her for wasting all her energy on what it calls a flimsy barrier. It prepares to cast a spell that it claims surpasses the most powerful energy Tao could ever generate. But as the spell forms, it suddenly disintegrates. The Lich is stunned to see Lloyd standing beside Tao, protecting her with a barrier. Lloyd looks at Tao with disappointment, chiding her for giving up so easily. He reassures her that he'll handle the Lich. Though he's in a hurry, Lloyd decides to have a little fun with the fight. The Lich begins chanting another incantation, but Lloyd moves through the air like a wisp of smoke, appearing behind it without warning. Using a Kai breathing technique, Lloyd combines his mana with Kai, refining his strikes to increase their precision. The Lich is baffled. How is a sorcerer like Lloyd using Kai so effectively? Moreover, Lloyd is releasing strike after strike without any incantation. The Lich grows desperate, continuously blocking Lloyd's attacks with its magic. But Lloyd grins maniacally, clearly enjoying the battle. He keeps experimenting, sharpening and thinning his strikes until one finally pierces the Lich's barrier. The final blow takes the Lich down, and a treasure chest appears in its place. Inside, they find only a ragged dagger. Tao dismisses it as worthless, but Lloyd senses residual mana within it and decides to keep it. Suddenly, the chest closes and begins sinking into the ground. Lloyd realizes that the treasure chest is the dungeon's core. It consumes magical items, grows stronger, and creates new dungeons. When adventurers clear the dungeon, the chest releases its collected loot and uses the opportunity to escape. Fascinated by this cycle, Lloyd grabs onto the chest, eager to learn more. However, Tao is more concerned about their safety, urging him to let it go. Lloyd manages to pull the treasure chest from the dungeon floor just as the roof begins to collapse. He and Tao narrowly escape before the dungeon seals itself completely. As they stand outside catching their breath, Tao wonders why Lloyd, a sorcerer, used Kai techniques during the battle. She assumes he did it to avenge her after the Lich mocked her abilities. However, Lloyd casually shrugs it off, explaining that he was just having fun. Suddenly, Lloyd recalls that his grimoire was in trouble. He informs Tao that he needs to leave immediately to address an urgent matter. Tao watches him fly off and resolves to train harder, hoping to become strong enough for Lloyd to find her intriguing one day. Lloyd returns to the castle, entering his bedroom window as usual. He's anxious about the grimoire's condition and finds it lying on the floor, covered in bumps and bruises. The grimoire recounts its ordeal, explaining that Silpha had been furious about Lloyd's apparent weakness during their last training session. She had taken out her frustration on the grimoire, chasing it around and forcing it to endure grueling drills to regain its former strength. The grimoire blames Lloyd for its predicament, accusing him of arriving late. Lloyd apologizes sincerely, promising to make it up to him. The next day, Lloyd and the grimoire are in the castle library, examining the dagger they found in the treasure chest. The grimoire looks unimpressed, questioning if the dagger was worth the trouble. Lloyd insists it's a valuable treasure and decides to investigate further. He soaks the dagger in hot water and scrubs its surface, eventually peeling off a layer of mana essence. The grimoire is intrigued as Lloyd explains that mana essence is a catalyst for enchanting weapons by inscribing spells onto them. Lloyd reads the mana essence's properties and discovers it enhances reinforced strength. The grimoire is excited at the prospect of experimenting with enchantments, but Lloyd cautions that mana essence is expensive and enchantments are prone to failure. To avoid wasting the essence, Lloyd decides to analyze it and attempt to mass produce it. Using a water purification spell, he isolates the essence's raw components: oil, silver, and hematite. The grimoire recognizes hematite as a rare powdered monster core and is amazed at their discovery. Lloyd reveals that the treasure chest they retrieved from the dungeon was its core, meaning they can potentially create more hematite. Both are thrilled, knowing they only need oil, silver, and weapons for their experiments. Lloyd approaches his father, the king, to request a favor. The king hands him a large pouch of silver coins and offers gold instead, but Lloyd insists silver will suffice. The king is impressed by Lloyd's humility and wonders about his plans. Back in the secret library, Lloyd and the grimoire melt the silver coins into liquid form, satisfied with their progress. Later, Lloyd trains with Silpha, determined to improve. He attempts a sprint spell to surprise her, but fails when she dodges effortlessly. Switching tactics, Lloyd uses a morphing spell on the ground, catching Silpha off guard. Just as he's about to claim victory, Silpha vanishes. To his shock, Silpha launches a surprise attack from beneath him, forcing Lloyd to yield. Despite winning, Silpha offers Lloyd a vase of oil as a prize. She admits she's relieved to see he isn't weak and realizes he was just having a bad day during their last sparring session. The grimoire, however, marvels at Silpha's ability to consistently defeat Lloyd, even when he uses magic, and jokingly suggests she might be a monster in disguise. Lloyd takes the oil, promising Silpha he'll put it to good use. Returning to the secret library, he combines the oil, silver, and hematite to successfully create mana essence. The next day, Lloyd visits Prince Albert for assistance in acquiring weapons for his experiments. Albert agrees, enlisting the royal guards to donate their weapons. The guards, skeptical of Lloyd's abilities, dismiss the weapons as expendable, doubting he can succeed. Undeterred, Lloyd activates his replica in auto-assist mode and begins enchanting the swords. The grimoire grows excited as Lloyd engraves spells into the blades. However, Lloyd's overenthusiasm causes one sword to shatter when he tries inscribing too many spells. Learning from his mistake, Lloyd refines his process and successfully enchants 50 weapons out of 120, although 70 swords are destroyed in the process. When Lloyd presents the enchanted swords to Prince Albert, Albert is astounded. Even a master enchanter typically achieves only a 10% success rate, yet Lloyd has enchanted over 40%. The guards remain skeptical until one attempts to sheath his sword, only for it to cut through the scabbard effortlessly. Albert invites Lloyd to join him on a monster hunt to test the weapons in action, and the king grants his permission. Lloyd, Albert, and Silpha set off in a carriage, eager to see the enchanted weapons in battle.